opportunity to TV for the Elimu show. My name is Felix MURIUKI from St. Mary's School, Nairobi. We are located in Westlands, and I'm here to talk something or to teach about the high GCSE geography on physical environment. Now, on this physical environment is a very broad. It's very broad. We have a wide range of all the features that are formed due to various activities within the interior of the Earth and also on the Earth's surface. And therefore, today at this hour, we are focusing on the earthquakes and the volcanoes. Now, the earthquakes and the volcanoes are the two occurrences that have ravaged the world in the past centuries due to their occurrences, especially when we check or when we look at how they occur, where they occur, and why they do occur, together with the associated features. And then we may ask ourselves, how do they affect the settlement of the populations wherever they occur? Now, let's begin with the volcanoes. Now, volcanoes, these are the features that are formed from the volcanic activity. The volcanic activity occurs almost every part of the world that has faced or that is located within the plate boundaries. Now, the Earth is divided into plates, and those ones are located on the upper or on the crust that is also known as the lithosphere, whereby we have 7 major plates. Along the boundaries of these plates, we have the occurrences of volcanoes. But then, before we continue to know how they occur and where they occur and why they do occur, we need to ask ourselves, what is a volcano? What is a volcano? Now, a volcano is an opening on the Earth's surface or on the Earth's crust through which molten magma or hot molten magma comes out towards the Earth's surface. And now, the magma is composed here of rock, ash that erupted onto the land. Now, most of the volcanoes, as I've said earlier, they happen along the plate boundaries. Now, we have the 7 plates, as I've said, and then 5 of them are continental plates, but 2 of them are oceanic plates. Now, along mostly the continental plates, the earthquakes might quite be rare, but along the oceanic plates where they meet, the earthquakes, the volcanoes, they are very rampant, especially in the Pacific Ocean. We have a part known as the Ring of Fire due to earthquakes and the volcanoes. Therefore, a volcano, as I said, is an opening on the Earth's surface through which hot molten magma reaches the Earth's surface. Now, we are going to accompany all these teachings together with some sketches or some diagrammatic sketches to represent what happens when these two or when this phenomena occurs on the Earth's surface. Now, most of the volcanoes or most of the volcanic activity or most of these volcanoes, as I've said, they are located along the plating boundaries. And then we have some of them that are not located on the plating boundaries. They are located on the areas known as hotspots, especially volcanoes like those ones in Hawaiian Highlands. Now, volcanoes have affected the world's climate over the years. Volcanoes have caused the change of the climate of the world over the years. Volcanoes also have led to some of displacement of the people for the years. Now, why do we say so? This is because volcanoes release some gases such as carbon dioxide and sulfur dioxide. we have sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide. Now, yeah, okay, thank you. Now, these are the two gases that mostly are released by the volcanic activity, and these two gases have caused the climate change on some of the parts of the earth for a number of years. For example, when the Mount Pinatubo, located in the Philippines, erupted, we had the climate change, we had the darkening of the sky for some time. Now, so these two gases also, they are among what is known as greenhouse gases. These are the gases that can influence the climate of the earth. These are the gases that also can influence the occurrence of the vegetation, the occurrence of the organisms in the oceans, especially when the volcanic activity happens in the oceans or on the oceans. Now, when the volcanic activity takes place, we have what is released from the volcanic activity. And as I have said earlier, is that in the volcanic activity or during the volcanism, we have a material, two materials. And this material, the common name is magma, but this magma is composed of several materials such as ash. We have gases. We have, when it comes to the surface, that is referred to as lava. Now, so briefly, that is the definition and brief explanation of volcano. However, the magma is located on the deep or on the interior of the earth, on the second layer from the crust, known as the mantle. The mantle is quite contains very high temperatures, and this explains why the rocks there are in molten or semi-molten state. Now, another thing to understand or another thing to note is that in the interior of the earth, where the mantle is, that part of the earth is always under high pressure. Therefore, when there comes an opening, when an opening takes place, or when maybe they get a place to come out, they come out so fast, so violent, in such a way that they may affect quite very huge distance, radius, and especially if the people are located along the active volcanoes, they may require evacuation. Now, when the magma reaches at the Earth's surface, when the magma reaches at the Earth's surface, it is known as lava. Now, before we get into the drawing, I want us to just check or look at the two types of volcanoes depending on the shape, depending on their formation, or depending on the flow of the lava, or depending on the type of the lava that is released by the volcanoes. Now, we have two types of volcanoes. Type number one, we have shield volcano, and then we have cone volcano. Now, shield volcano, this is a volcano that is formed when the magma comes out of the Earth's surface and flows for quite a long distance before it cools down and solidifies, as I'm going to represent through diagrammatic representation here. So we have an opening where the magma comes from, and then we have the magma flow. We have the magma flow, which of course now becomes the lava. At this case, at this surface, or at the surface, it becomes lava and piles up. However, it goes for quite long distance or longer distance before it cools down and solidifies. Therefore, that is the shield volcano. So we have the shield volcano composing of very hot magma. This very hot magma, as I have said, it has to flow for quite a long distance before it cools down and solidifies. And this is magma, and this is kind of the lava that is non-viscous, or the viscosity is very low. Is low, so that's why explains why it flows very far. Then the result of this kind of volcano is what you call gently or gentle slopes, gently lying slopes, as it is shown here. Then for the other type of volcano, that is a cone volcano, it is opposite of this one, as I'm going to represent it here through diagrammatic representation. Very important, so that we are able to understand better. Now, cone volcano, another one. Then this one we have I'm going to explain some of these features just shortly. I'm going to explain these ones. Yes. Now, as you can see, we have a difference here between the two volcanoes. One volcano, that is shield volcano, gently sloping volcano. Then we have a cone volcano, that is steep, a bit steep, a steep sloping volcano. Why is this steep sloping? Now, this is because this kind of volcano, the magma does not flow far before it cools down and solidifies. So what happens in this kind of volcano is the opposite of what happens in this volcano, and that is why this explains the viscosity. Here is low, while here the viscosity is quite high. And therefore, these are some of the features that result from the volcanoes. These are some of the features that result from the volcanoes. And this one, we have thick materials in terms of lava, thick materials in terms of magma, and therefore also thick materials in terms of dust and ash. Now, we may ask ourselves, what are some of the terms that can be used to describe, terms that can be used to say that a volcanic activity has taken place from this point? Now, one thing that we need to know, or that we need to understand, is that if this is a volcano, for example, I may use this one, now move away from the type of volcano, and now take this one as a volcano itself, and therefore we want to look at the parts of volcanoes. Now, this is a volcano, and I've seen just move away from the part of it, and I'll take it as a volcano the way it is. And therefore, as I said, now we have the magma originating from this point. This is known as reservoir of the magma. And this magma now, at this point, this one is known as chamber of the magma. A chamber is the reservoir, is a reservoir where the magma comes from. And as I have said earlier, is that this magma is always in molten state, stored in the upper part of the mantle. Therefore, if a way comes along the reservoir or in the middle of the reservoir, if there is a way for this magma to come out, it must come out through this way. And through this way, this is a pipe. And this pipe is called vent. This pipe is called a vent. So, in other words, it is no longer a pipe now, it is a vent. This one explains a way through which magma flows out of the mantle into the Earth's surface. At this point, we may have a feature that is hollow-like or basin-like feature that is known as a crater. crater. And depending on the type of the volcano, or depending on the number of the times that a volcano may erupt, these craters sometimes they may be filled with lakes, they may be filled with vegetation, they may be filled with even some of the wild animals, like the crater of Mount Longonot in Rift Valley part of Kenya. Now, so these are the three major three major parts of a volcano that need to be understood at IGCSE lowest level, and therefore, when we do this, when we see this one now, the material that is here, this material, I have said it may be composed of ash, lava, and then of course the gases that maybe have already escaped into the atmosphere, such as carbon dioxide and of course sulfur dioxide. Now at this point, depending on the time of eruption, we have three types of volcanoes. Depending on the time of eruption, we have three types of volcanoes, and this is what I want to explain before we go to the earthquakes. Now, depending on the time of eruption. Now, in this case, this is very, very common, not only even in the IGCSE, I know it even in 844 in Kenyan curriculum, we have come across this one. We have three types of volcanoes depending on the time of eruption. That is number one, active volcanoes. Dormant, number two, volcanoes, and then number three, extinct volcanoes. Now, for active volcanoes, these are the ones that have erupted in recent times. Erupted in recent times, like what we witnessed in the Democratic Republic of Congo in the last year. Volcanoes like Mount Nyiragongo in Congo near the Goma city. We have volcanoes like Mount Pinatubo in Philippines, and of course Montserrat in Caribbean. Examples: Nyiragongo, this is in Congo. Then we have Pinatubo in Philippines, and we also have Montserrat, that is Caribbean. So these are some of the active volcanoes around the world, although there are several and many more, of course. Now, Mount Pinatubo, that is in Philippines, this one erupted in 1991. But Mount Montserrat, this one erupted in 1997, while this one erupted in 2021. Now, then the second type, this is the dormant volcanoes, and these ones, they are the ones that have not erupted in they have not erupted in near future. Recently, they have not erupted recently, but they show signs of eruption. Anytime they can erupt, though they have not erupted, and may erupt anytime, such as Mount Rainier in USA. Mount Rainier in USA. Therefore, these are some of the mountains that actually they are unpredictable in terms of the time for eruption. Now, then number 3 is extinct volcanoes. These are the ones, and these are some of the mountains that have erupted once during their time of formation, and since then they've never erupted again. These mountains just erupted only once during the time of the formation, such as, of course, Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, in Tanzania. Just for the near ones, Mount Kenya in Kenya, and of course Mount Elgon, that is in Kenya, Uganda border. So these are the mountains that just erupted only once during their times of formation. And this explains why, due to the volcanic activity of these mountains, agriculture has been very, very successful in these mountains, since the chances of eruption are quite minimal, or it may take several years for these mountains to erupt again. And therefore, on the slopes of these mountains, there are quite settlement. The settlements are, or the population is very dense due to the rich volcanic soils for farming. So briefly, we also have Mount Lepais in France. If we have to move us outside of Africa, we have Mount Lepais in France. So these are some of the mountains whereby the eruption has never been witnessed in human history, apart from when they were being formed. So therefore, that is all about the volcanoes. It was just a brief introduction, whereby as we continue, we are going to get deeper and deeper into the details of volcanicity, or just volcanoes and those features that are associated apart from the volcanic mountains. Let's now move to the earthquakes. When you move to the earthquakes now, that is another phenomena, a geographical phenomena. Thank you. So that is another phenomena that has quite for some time disturbed people who have, or those people who have occupied areas near the earthquakes prone areas. Now, what is an earthquake? What is an earthquake? That is where we are as we check what an earthquake is. An earthquake is a sudden shaking or sudden violent shaking of the earth's surface. Violent shaking of the earth's surface. The violent shaking of the earth's surface. Now, as we see here, what causes the shaking of the earth? What makes the earth to shake? Now, before the geographical studies of the earthquakes, of course, there were several theories that were connected to the earthquakes. There were several theories, medical theories, that they were connected to the earthquakes and why they take place. Now, earthquakes simply are caused by tectonic forces. Very, very important. Earthquakes are caused by tectonic forces. Now, the tectonic forces, these are the forces that originate from the interior of the earth due to the build-up of the pressure in the interior of the earth. Now, these forces, or these tectonic forces, lead to build-up of pressure, which causes rocks and other materials to give way, and therefore resulting to shaking, which might be quite low intensity or high intensity. Now, the scientific study of the earthquakes is called seismology. Scientific study of earthquakes is known as seismology, and therefore the scientists who study the earthquakes are known as seismologists. And therefore, just like the case of volcanoes, the earthquakes also take place near or around the plate boundaries, and it may happen especially when a plate is moving against each other, or maybe when the plate is moving also away from each other. Now, we have some 3 features that explain the earthquakes, or for us to be able to understand the earthquake in broader details, we need to understand the three concepts. Number 1 concept is known as the focus. The focus is where the earthquake originates from beneath the Earth's surface. A part beneath the Earth's surface where earthquake originates from. Where it originates from. This is a very, very important concept to understand. So, number 2, we have an epicenter. Epicenter. Now, there's a part on the Earth's surface that is first to receive the effect of the earthquake from the focus. In other words, it is a part that is vertically above the focus. The part of the Earth's surface vertically above the focus where the earthquake is first felt. Where the earthquake is first felt. Very, very important. Now, and then the last part, or the last point, is the earth tremors. The earth tremors. We have the earth tremors. Earth tremors, and these are the earthquakes that are least violent, that maybe they might even be not felt. Earthquake that is least violent, that may not even be felt. So, having understood these 3 important terms, therefore, we may ask ourselves, why do we experience earthquakes in some of the parts of the world more frequent than the others? As I have said before, is that some of these parts where the earthquakes occur frequently, these are the parts that are located along the plate boundaries. The parts that are not located along the plate boundaries, like some parts of Africa, they may not experience earthquakes at all. However, also, where we have some features like Rift Valley, which have been affected by the whatever is taking place from the interior of the earth, we may also have the earthquakes taking place in such areas. So, let us look at the causes of earthquakes briefly. Causes of earthquakes. Causes of earthquakes. Causes of earthquakes. Now, the earthquakes are caused by both natural phenomena, and human activity. Therefore, the most important thing to look here is when we understand, or when a population or when a group of people understand that they are in an area that is prone to earthquake, what are the actions to take? And before they take the actions, what can tell them that the earthquake is about to take the place? Therefore, we need first to understand the causes of the earthquakes, and we see if this can be a signal of the incoming earthquake, and then it may make people also to take the necessary measures in order not to be affected by the earthquake. Therefore, let's begin with we have both the natural causes and human causes. Let's begin with the natural causes. Natural causes. Thank you. Now, for the natural causes, these are just what is beyond human control, what normally happens on the Earth's surface, or on the interior of the Earth's surface, or maybe on the interior of the Earth, not the interior of the Earth's surface, leading to the earthquake taking place. Therefore, we have the first cause, the natural cause is known as tectonic movement. Tectonic movement. And for tectonic movement, as I have said, this is when the plates are moving. Now, remember, the plates are very, very large. They are very, very huge, and they are moving slowly each year, and that's why we may even not feel when they are moving. Now, when the two plates meet, crash and lock, then we may have the shaking of the ground. And this shaking of the ground is what we are calling the earthquake. Why? Because when the two plates meet, there is buildup of pressure. And this is the pressure that causes the part of the earth to shake, leading to the earthquake. Therefore, number two cause is volcanicity. And that is why earthquakes and volcanoes are very, very related. Volcanicity. That is when a volcanic activity takes place. When the magma comes out of the ground, we have creation of the hollows in the ground. Now, the rocks may be disturbed and move so as to fill the spaces created by the movement of the magma. And when the rocks move now, they may cause the crust to shake, leading to the formation of the earthquake. Therefore, these tremors take place due to displacement of the rocks from the chamber of the magma. Then we have the gravitative pressure. Gravitative pressure. Now, gravitative pressure, this is the pressure exhibited by the earth, whereby the earth is always pulling all the objects towards its center. Now, gravitation force is more, or maybe is more intense as you move to the interior of the earth. Therefore, when we have some of the rocks displaced in any part of the earth, then, especially in the interior, then we have the space that is created is always pulled down by the pressure, maybe from the core. And that pressure now, of course, leads to what we call shaking of the rocks. And this shaking of the rocks comes all the way to the Earth's surface, and therefore we are able to experience the earthquake. Then we also have what we call isostatic adjustment. Isostatic adjustment. So for isostatic adjustment, this one is whereby we have the state of equilibrium that every time takes place between the earth, or it takes place on the earth's surface between the upper mantle and the lower mantle. We have of course the balance. And when this balance is disturbed, of course, there is a movement. And that is the movement that results to the earthquake. So isostatic adjustment, this is at the state of balance. And when the adjustment, this is now the case of trying to balance itself. And as it tries to balance due to disturbances by the crust or rocks, therefore we have the earthquake taking place due to the shaking of those rocks. And therefore we have the energy released from the mantle as another cause, or the last cause of the natural cause, whereby, of course, during the radioactivity, which is the breakup of nucleus of an atom, we have the energy in form of heat that is released. And if this heat is intense, it may send what we call shock waves. And these shock waves are the ones that cause the crust rocks to shake, leading to the earthquake in various areas. Now, we have found some countries which experience earthquakes in the world every time and then, having to adjust to these earthquakes through maybe building of earthquake resistant houses, maybe taking necessary measures of evacuation, maybe rebuilding after the destruction of some infrastructure. And therefore we have countries like Philippines, countries like Japan, countries like Korea, we have some other countries around the Caribbean, and the Caribbean is a region around the Central America, whereby there are several islands there. And therefore we have countries, of course, like USA, we have countries like Haiti, we have countries like Jamaica, Cuba, Guyana, Suriname, thank you, and some more countries. Now, in Africa, we may not be having very rampant cases of earthquakes as in these countries. And of course, another very, very important country, Indonesia. Indonesia, I can even add New Zealand. New Zealand. So these are some of the countries that have of recent experienced intense earthquakes. They are the countries that have experienced intense vibrations, intense shaking of the Earth's surface on their locations. Now, very quickly, let's look at the human causes of the earthquakes. Human causes of the earthquakes. Now, these are not very many. As you know, the human activity may not trigger so much shaking or maybe violent shaking of the ground. Therefore, we have number one, underground nuclear test. Underground nuclear test. Now, underground nuclear test, this one is done by the countries that produce nuclear weapons. And as they try to test them, because they may not test them where we have maybe settlements, because they may lead to devastating effects, they may do this one especially in the seas, in the oceans. And when they do so, of course, due to that explosion, nuclear explosion, which is very, very violent, which is also very, very dangerous to the marine life, therefore the earth may receive some tremors or may receive some kind of shaking due to the test of nuclear weapons underground. Now, then you have the movement of the trains. This is very, very normal. I think almost everybody has felt this one. Movement of trains or even large trucks or maybe heavy trucks. Now, if you are maybe near the area where a very huge truck is moving, carrying very heavy load, you may experience some tremors. That is also an earthquake. It's only that it is an earthquake that is of low intensity. Then we have use of explosives. use of explosives, and the use of explosives here now is where this takes place during the mining. When some of the rocks are being blasted, some machines, some gadgets may be used to blast them, so that to break them into pieces for them to for easier working with them. And when this happens now, we may get some tremors, we may get some vibrations. And lastly, we have the construction of large reservoirs. Construction of large reservoirs. This is the main one cause of the earthquakes, because almost every part of the world we have large reservoirs, man-made lakes in other ones, for the generation of hydroelectric power. Now, we have one of the largest man-made reservoir in the world that is known as Three Gorges Dam in China. It is known as Three Gorges Dam. It is located in China. Now, this dam actually slowed down the rotation of the earth. Now, such reservoirs may cause the earthquakes because they may cause imbalance. They may cause imbalance in the crust, and therefore we may have the tremors taking place. Now, we have two scales that we use to measure earthquakes, but we are going to talk about that one later in details. We have two scales that we use to measure the intensity of the earthquakes, and these are used to measure the intensity of earthquakes. We have number one, Richter scale, and number two we have Mercalli scale. These ones we are going to talk about these ones later, but just for for just a simple knowledge, just know these are the two types of the measurements, or maybe that are used to measure the earthquake intensity. And finally, let's look at the distribution of earthquakes and volcanoes. Around the world. Now, as I said earlier, earthquakes take place around or along the plate boundaries. And also we have all the areas that are located along the plate boundaries getting intense earthquakes and very active volcanic activity. Now, the distribution of the wounds, earthquakes, and the volcanoes is uneven. It is uneven because it is not all the areas that have plate boundaries may resort to the earthquakes. Why so? Because we have around 4 types of plate boundaries, and these 4 types of the plate boundaries, we have around 2 whereby the common earthquakes take place, and that is why we have the boundaries around the Caribbean and the boundaries around the Far East, that is Japan, Philippines, and New Zealand, and Australia, having more and more of earthquakes. Now, some earthquakes, of course, may occur away from the plate boundaries, and therefore, like in the Rift Valley in Kenya, that is not near the plate boundary, but the earthquakes may occur due to maybe the volcanic activity there. Now, there are about 500,000. There are about 500,000 earthquakes that are detected each year by the sensitive instrument. And then, as we said, some earthquakes may result from human activities. Now, coming to volcanoes, there are around 1,300 volcanoes in the world. And these volcanoes, most of them, 3/4 of them are located in the ocean. they are located in the oceans, and that explains why we have very huge waves such as tsunamis, maybe due to volcanic activity taking place in the ocean. Now, for these volcanoes, 3/4 of all the world's active volcanoes are located in the Pacific Ring of Fire. 3/4 of world's volcanoes are located along the Pacific Ring of Fire. That's why the volcanic place, or maybe the volcanic activity is very, very common there. Examples are like Mount Pinatubo in Philippines, we have Krakatoa in Indonesia, and Popocatépetl in Mexico. So all those ones are located in the Pacific Ring of Fire. Thank you very much. Now, the other ones are located in the USA, other ones are located in the Mexico, and therefore these are some of the mountains that we are going to study in the next class. And therefore, for more classes like these ones, or maybe if you want your daughter or your son to be mentored in IGCSE geography. Okay, thank you very much. Now, we are coming to the conclusion of this class, and okay, thank you very much. Therefore, up to that point, so that is all what we can talk about the earthquakes and the volcanoes. And therefore, for these classes and more, maybe if you want your son or your daughter to be mentored on IGCSE geography or even 844 geography, just contact 0701 396 355. 0701 396 355, and therefore you are all welcome to contact that number, so that it is also on the screen, so that we are able to have some mentorship, especially during the holidays, for your son or your daughter, both studying Cambridge curriculum and even 844 curriculum. Thank you very much, KUTV. Until the next class, my names are Teacher MURIUKI Felix from St. Mary's School, Nairobi. Welcome. Thank you.